Wow. So, welcome back to another episode of Tapping Into Life. I am your host, Brenda, and this is our first episode for 2025. And it is the anniversary of our first year. So, woohoo to us. And just a big thank you to all the listeners and all the guests that have been on. And yeah, I'm really excited for 2025 and to see where this is all going to go. And yeah, let's just keep the conversation going. This is really important to talk about, some of these topics around how do we, connect to our mind, body, and soul and really feel our true selves. There's just so much going on in the world, and it can get really overwhelming. We can have a lot going on in our own personal lives. And how do we manage it all? It just can feel like a lot. And so this might be a nice place to come and just, have a few minutes of a distraction, maybe just help you to connect back to yourself in amongst all the busyness. So, yeah, please share if you are enjoying the episodes. It helps to get the word out, get more listeners. And yeah, I'm just here to keep the conversation going. And I just appreciate all of you. And yeah, let's just keep tapping into life. There's just so much that we could do to support ourselves. And let's start with the conversation. So I'm excited. So when this episode airs, it will be officially 1 year of tapping into life. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. And it has just been such a beautiful journey. So I send so much love and gratitude to you all. Now, on to the episode. So, this episode is called Tapping Into Mindfulness. And I thought this is such a good conversation to have for the start of the new year, because I know for myself, and maybe this is not the case for you, but we often have programming around expectations, I guess, around what, the new year should look like, right? I'm going to make resolutions. I've got these goals. I'm going to, it's going to be a whole new year. And yeah, I definitely did a lot of that myself. I get really pumped. Okay, it's a new start. I'm going to give it my all. And, in fairness, I had really good intentions, right? I was really wanting, I think we all, right? We all want the best for ourselves. But I realized, and honestly, it took a little bit of time because, I had to keep kind of diving deeper to figure out, what's going on here. But yeah, it was a lot to do with my programming and conditioning. And once I realized that I was really, just thinking, oh, wow, it's a new year and things are just going to magically change. Well, no, that's not how it works. And I kind of knew that, but I guess I was hoping, it's just like fresh start, right? We're going to clear that slate, forget about whatever year, we're moving forward, right? We're not going to deal with the past. We're just going to forget about it. And it's interesting because as much as we want to forget about the past, we are actually probably still living in the past in terms of how our behavior is, right? Like how we're functioning. Are we, taking action, or are we feeling stuck? And I didn't even realize that I was probably stuck in my way of doing things. Procrastination was a big one, right? I would kind of put things off to the last minute. It still is still a thing, but it's probably not as bad because back then I wasn't following through. And, oftentimes I would just talk myself out of it, right? The ego would get involved and be like, yeah, no, like, what's the point, right? there'd be a lot of self-doubt showing up, a lot of inner critic. Maybe you can relate to this, right? So I thought that this was a really great conversation to have about mindfulness, because mindfulness, and this is, I'm sharing my opinion and, the 2 cents that it's worth, but I think that it's a standard thing, is that mindfulness is really about connecting to yourself, right? It's that awareness of where you're at in the moment, right? It's that present moment, whether it's for 30 seconds, a minute, whether you can do it for a little bit longer, but it's really kind of connecting to like what's going on for you in that moment. And there's no judgment. There's no criticizing. There's no self-doubt. It's really when we're being truly mindful, we are actually just showing ourselves so much love, kindness, and compassion, especially if maybe something hasn't, gone as planned, and we're, trying to just manage, and maybe we didn't follow through with something, and we're, being hard on ourselves. Well, that's not being mindful. When we're, reinforcing that negative talk, then that's not where we're being mindful. We're actually, being really the opposite, where we're being really hard on ourselves, and we're taking ourselves probably down, a rabbit hole that is not in our best interest. We all do it. I do it myself. The difference now is that I'm catching myself, right? I'm aware of those moments where I'm like, wait, hold on a second. I think I'm being kind of hard on myself right now. Okay, let's just pause. Let's just take a moment and step back, and then I'll connect to my breath and breathe. And I just did a live on Instagram a few days ago, and it was about actually a situation where I had made a plan to do a live at a certain time, and that didn't happen. And in the past, I would have probably had a lot of shame and guilt about that. I didn't follow through. I'd actually be pretty hard on myself. I've had a very long history of being critical to myself, very hard on myself. I would never do that to anybody else for the most part, but I was really hard on myself. So I would just rake myself over the fire, like, whoo, baby. I was like, you really effed up, girl, and just go one side and then down the other side of myself, right? And, maybe you can relate to this. But what was beautiful this time is that I was like, it's okay. Like, we're human. We're going to make mistakes. And it wasn't a huge mistake, but it's an interesting thing because I brought some awareness to it. And I sat with it for a minute, and I was like, how do I feel? And just connected to my body. And I just invite you as well, like if that's something where, maybe something's come up for you, maybe you didn't do something you were supposed to do, maybe you're avoiding doing something that, needs to get done. And, or maybe even just the start of this new year, it hasn't maybe started off well, and that's okay. It's day by day. But maybe you're being hard on yourself because it's like, oh, I haven't started the exercise program yet. I haven't gone to the gym yet. Oh my gosh, it was supposed to be a dry January and I have been drinking. Right? So we're kind of beating ourselves up and we're putting all this pressure on ourselves. So what I recognized is that when I was like checking in and seeing how I felt about this, one of the things that came up as I just connected to my breath and slowed down the monkey brain and went to my heart is that, you know what? You needed the rest. You actually needed to just take some time for yourself. You had had 2 full busy days the day before. And so your self-care comes first, girl. And that was the message that came through. And I was like, oh, wow, that's so beautiful. Like that's a new message, that those neural pathways are getting recreated, right? So when we have limited beliefs going on, we can actually reprogram those limited beliefs. And that's where tapping can be really helpful. So that was a mindful moment for me, is that I was able to kind of stop and become aware. And that's one of the suggestions I'd like to share with you, is that when you are, I think sometimes we think, and I used to think this for sure, is that, oh, like, I don't have a lot of time, right? I'm like running, I've got like so much responsibility. I'm a mom, I've got kids, I've got work, I've got, the family. I've got to take care of a lot of things. Like, I don't have time to be mindful. Like, that's not in the cards, right? But you know what? It doesn't have to be, oh, like I'm going to sit down for an hour and meditate. Mindfulness can be 30 seconds, right? Bringing that awareness to yourself, where you're connecting to your heart and your breath. And maybe in the beginning, you just count and breathe, right? You just listen to your breath, and you count as you're breathing, because that's what you need to focus on. Because otherwise, you're going to be like thinking about all the million things that you have to do, and this isn't one of them. And so we get very distracted, right? And I know that was a big thing for me, is like, I can't even sit, like, how am I going to sit still for meditation, right? And I think that we get locked in, we get these expectations on ourselves. We hear like, oh, this is how people meditate. How am I going to do this? I don't have the time. I can't sit still. Like, I'm fidgety, all those things. And the thing is that when we slow down for 30 seconds, even if you can go a minute, amazing. And just connect to like what's coming up in your body, not in your head, but connecting to your heart, connecting to your body, and maybe even placing your hands on your heart and just like take a breath. And, sometimes it might be like I'm sitting in my car before I come in the house, right? I'm going to just connect to myself and give myself a couple of minutes or 1 minute. Let's be honest. Sometimes we have to be realistic, right? Like, there's people waiting on us and we need to get going. So we need to first take care of ourselves. So the more we can be aware of where we're at. And the second part to that is that when we're feeling whatever feelings we're having, right? It's like bringing that awareness to, maybe I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling irritated, or I'm feeling down. Allowing yourself to feel whatever it is you're feeling. Now, maybe you don't have the time to process those feelings. And that's where, like, oh my gosh, the tapping is like a lifesaver, right? Is that you could be even just tapping while you're like, I'm so frustrated. Oh, I'm so frustrated. And the beautiful thing about this is that you are letting it out. When you're tapping and expressing the feelings, you're actually helping to release it. So I would definitely, if you can do that, you could even do 30 seconds of just like whatever the feeling is that's feeling uncomfortable, give it 30 seconds. And I can tell you, you're going to feel like a whole different person. But if you keep shoving that down, right, that's not being mindful, and you're actually causing more harm. You're causing more emotional harm, more physical harm. It's going to take a toll on you, right? And so we want it, even if it's just small baby steps. I mean, that's how we make change, is through small baby steps. If you can't even do that, then that's okay. You could sneak it away. And one of the things, and this was like life changing for me, is that I thought, oh, like I don't want to touch these feelings, right? I don't want to talk about my fear or my shame or my anger, my sadness. I don't want to talk about it, right? Because it's very uncomfortable. However, the more we ignore, the more it's going to persist. So if we keep ignoring things, it's going to grow. It's going to keep coming back, keep showing up. It's going to be like, okay, you didn't get it this time, girl. I'm going to show you how it really is. And so maybe it's going to show up in your gut. Maybe your stomach starts to bother you and you start not feeling well. Maybe you start getting like physically sick because your body's like, okay, I'm going to shut you down, girl, because you don't seem to get it. So the more we can say, okay, you know what, shame, I can feel you. Like I feel you. Or frustration or anger, or whatever you're feeling, acknowledge it, right? And say, you know what, I feel you. And I'm gonna have to come back to you later. So I'm gonna have to put you and put that emotion, like, and we're going to talk about another exercise, which is visualization, is visualize putting that emotion somewhere safe. Like maybe you put it in a box in your room, or maybe it's an emotion you don't want in your house. So you put it in a tree somewhere. You can do whatever you want. But the validation is the key piece here, right? Is that when you're connecting to an uncomfortable emotion and you're showing that you see it, and that you are validating it, it doesn't mean that, oh, like I'm going to stay with this emotion. You're actually going to feel a lot lighter because you're actually giving it some acknowledgement. And when we validate things, it lessens the intensity of it. Okay, so that is being mindful. That is actually showing compassion for yourself and these parts of yourself. So if you can't give it a few minutes of like, just acknowledging whatever is coming up by tapping on it, then just letting it know, I'm going to come back to you, but I can't do that right now. I'm going to put you in a safe place. And this may sound a little bit silly, but you know what? If you've never done this, then I welcome you to give it a try, because it honestly changes everything, because it's all energy. Our emotions are energy, and we are energy beings, right? So if we keep, just discarding these emotions, just discarding ourselves, it will keep showing up until you finally say, hello, pay attention to me. And that's what we need to do. That's being mindful, is being aware of how we're feeling, especially in the shitty times. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially with the new year. Like I said at the beginning, we want to do certain things, and maybe they're not happening, or maybe, it's a struggle to get going. It's okay. Allow yourself that compassion, because maybe you've got a lot going on your plate. And who's to say you have to do it all at one time? Right? Maybe you have to break it down and do baby steps. But the mindfulness piece is giving yourself that awareness and that compassion and kindness. And that is no judgment there, right? Is we're allowed to feel how we feel, even if it's uncomfortable. Okay? So that's one of the first things I would suggest. Another one that's really beautiful is, like I was mentioning about the sneaking away, is getting into a visualization. And this, again, doesn't have to be a long time, right? And this is something I was learning when I first got into meditating, is I would tap. Now, I would do a lot of finger tapping. And I would just sit, I'd find my, favorite chair. Sometimes I would do it in the car because it was just so much easier, right? I didn't have to come in the house, because once I came in the house, then everybody needed my attention. So I would sit in the car for a couple of minutes and I would do some tapping. And I would actually close my eyes and focus on my breathing. And that would help me to get back into my body. But one of the beautiful things about visualization that I really liked is that I would start to visualize a place that I really loved. And now I have two favorite places. So yeah, that's so great because it's expanded. But my first place is always near water, preferably the ocean, but any type of body of water. Could be a lake, if that's not available, a pool. But the important part is that I would go into a visualization and just see myself near this water. And now I also visualize myself in the forest, connecting to the trees and feeling the sensations as if I'm right there. Because your brain doesn't know any different, right? Your brain doesn't know that you're not at the ocean or at the forest. But as you start to bring in those sensations, like how it feels on your feet, the wind, the whistling of the trees, or the beautiful smell of the salt water, the ocean breeze, when you start to like bring that in, your brain is like activated, and it's like, yes, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And your body starts to relax. That's the beautiful thing. And that is where you're being mindful, visualizing a special place that makes you feel peaceful and calm. And I always start off doing the tapping and the breathing. As I've mentioned in the past, it helps me to get into my body quite quickly. It helps me feel grounded and regulated, because our nervous system, if we're like a spinning top, even though I'm sitting still, my nervous system is like rattled, and it's not going to be easy to get into a visualization, right? It's just like meditating. I can't get there if my body is just going like, ah. So it's not a laughing matter by any means, because I get it, right? I've been running around, when my kids, especially when my boys were young, they had a lot of activities, and you just are trying to stay afloat, right? You're just trying to get from one thing to the next, trying to manage everything, and it can have a toll on you. So it's important to try and catch your breath. And by taking yourself to a happy place, your brain thinks you're already there. It's so amazing when we start to do this visualization. So even if you do a couple of minutes, a minute to 2 minutes of tapping and breathing, either finger tapping or tapping on the points, or even like finding one spot to tap on and then go to that place. That's a beautiful way of being mindful, right? It's ultimately supporting yourself, giving yourself that compassion and love. And, it doesn't have to be, like when I go and get a massage, or, when I go to the spa. It doesn't have to be. That's wonderful. And those can be mindful, but they're not realistic to do on a regular basis, right? We can't be doing those things all the time. And if you are, kudos to you, because I don't know too many people, and maybe I'm not hanging out with the right people, but I think that, yeah, we're kind of, in a routine of like working hard, taking care of things. And that's kind of at the bottom of the totem pole. Am I going to be honest? And I think we're becoming more self-aware about how to take care of ourselves, and that is, becoming more of a priority. And self-awareness is stepping forward, but it is a learning practice. And this is something that it's not like, okay, I'm going to do this once and it's going to just fix it all. But I think we need to understand that this is a process. So if I'm new to this, becoming more mindful, maybe that's a goal I have for 2025. Then maybe you start slow, right? It's like maybe once a day, I do 1 minute of something that is bringing me back to myself. Whether you call it mindfulness or not, But maybe I take 1 minute to just breathe, like fully breathe. Because we're unconsciously breathing, to be honest. But we're shallow breathing most of the time. So if I was to take like 1 minute of, just connecting to my breath, closing my eyes, connecting to my heart, and then see how you feel and like slowly increase that, right? The idea is to set yourself up for success, not to self-judge, not to criticize yourself. Oh, look, here's another thing I didn't do. That's not what we're here to do, right? We want to do less of that. The last thing that I would love to share with you is, and this is a beautiful way to just bring in a little bit of meditation. We don't have to meditate for like an hour. If you can meditate for hours, kudos to you, because you know what? I can't meditate for hours. I'm happy to meditate for 10, 20 minutes. Sometimes it goes longer, and that's a bonus, but that's not always possible, right? Sometimes I have 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is better than no minutes, or 1 minute is better than no minutes. And so this is a beautiful, loving kindness meditation that I want to share with you. And I'm going to, if you're listening to this podcast, at this point in the podcast, if you are, maybe driving, I would recommend you maybe pause and come back to this when you can maybe sit comfortably in a chair and not be behind a car or a wheel driving. Because I know for myself, I listen to podcasts when I'm driving, but I also listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm walking. So this would be okay to do if you're walking, but I wouldn't recommend if you were driving. So this is a beautiful way, and I would definitely invite you to do a little tapping. So I'm going to just tap on the side, just below my collarbone. And just taking a moment to connect to your breath and breathe it out. And the fact that you're here and you're taking this time for yourself and just feeling your feet on the ground, feeling just the connection to if you're sitting, feeling your back in the chair, and just noticing the presence of where you are. And maybe you're thinking about your happy place, right? This is a special place that you just feel so safe and comfortable in. And this is a beautiful meditation that you can do for yourself, and you can always put it forward for somebody that you care about. And maybe they're going through a hard time. Could be a friend, a loved one, a family member. And you know what? It's beautiful. They don't need to know, but you're sending this energetically. So it goes like this. And you can close your eyes and just breathe and tap. As I say this, it's probably like going to be 20 seconds. May I be calm. And just breathe that in. And exhale it out. May I be happy. Take a breath in. And breathe it out. May I be safe. Take a breath in. And breathe it out. May I find peace. Take a breath in. And breathe it out. And you can repeat that again. May I be calm. And breathe it out. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be at peace. And then if you wanted to extend that to somebody that you care about, may you be happy. And then just breathing it in and breathe it out. May you be well as you breathe in. And then breathe it out. May you be safe as you breathe in and out. May you find peace, and breathe it out. And I don't know about you, but I definitely feel way more at ease. And, I would even, encourage you to change the words. I mean, these are just some examples, but, it could be, may I feel more at ease, right? May I feel more relaxed. May I feel more patient. Whatever is coming up for you, just bringing that awareness, and just honoring where you're at. And that's really, being mindful, and, having little moments where we can be more at peace, more happy, more joy. It's not like we're waiting for this big moment to happen. It's like, having that moment right now. Like right now for me, this is my happy place, right? Being here, recording, doing a podcast episode for you is a happy place for me. And yeah, it's because of all of you that I get to, create, share, and talk about these important things. So I hope you found some of these suggestions helpful. I think the key piece here in this whole conversation about mindfulness is, if anything you take away, is that you don't judge yourself, right? Is that when we're being hard on ourselves and we're going to have those moments, is just check in, take a breath, and reset and be like, okay, yeah, I didn't handle that well. Okay. How can I move forward? What could I do to support myself? Right. And so when we come from that angle, we're definitely not judging ourselves. And if you're getting a lot of that monkey brain, you feel a lot of that negative talk is really trying to take over, then just go to the breathing and the tapping, because that will calm your nervous system down. And it's amazing, honestly, because when we calm the nervous system, the brain settles down and it says, oh, we're not in danger. Like we are having to fight or flight. Okay, we're safe. And then things start to settle down. And that can happen, honestly, very quickly. It can happen, within a couple of minutes. So like anything, it's consistency, but these are really beautiful ways that you can help support yourself mindfully, 30 seconds, a minute or more. So I welcome you and, to give it a try, right? You have nothing to lose and probably a lot to gain from some of these beautiful exercises. And these are things I do myself, right? Anything I'm sharing, I really believe in and I do myself. So I hope you found this helpful. I'm so excited to, keep this conversation going with you. And I've got some exciting guests coming up for the next episodes. So stay tuned. I look forward to connecting with you again. And you know what? Let's take this time, because it's busy. The energy is busy, crazy. Just life in general can be a lot. So take this time for yourself, right? And tap back into life. I look forward to connecting with you again. Sending you so much love. Mwah. And thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week. Bye for now.